What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets Haber as usual. We are, this will be my last show from the road, the last show from this park, and I will be back and focused in on everything that we're doing. We've got a lot of stuff. As I always start off, and I keep wanting to remind people, check out, if you're not looking at Sheets right now, you guys check it out while this stuff is still free, because this is a really, really awesome tool. And it's really, we've got a bunch of other things coming out as well. I just want to keep keep an eye on that. And, we're really ready to get this thing going. I know we don't have a ton of, all the normal sports that I do going right now, just a little basketball and a lot of baseball. But we want to have this all ready, in the next week or so. So we're getting everything loaded in, but really check out this stuff while it's still free. And I think it's something that everybody would find incredibly helpful, incredibly useful. With that said, Sheets, how about your weekend? How did you do? And fill us in on the other sports, and then we'll get into some baseball for today.
Yeah. So first, again, I didn't want to whine about this on Twitter and the Discord, whatever it is, but I was in position to win the whole NASCAR tournament all by myself, the Xfinity one. I made the mistake of calling my son in to sweat. I called him and said, Matt, do we really have to sweat this? And you can't ever win those things, especially the Xfinity one by yourself. I had a totally unique lineup that was in first, and one guy wrecked with like 8 laps to go. It was, it was rough. But then MMA was pretty good. Golf, I appreciate what Bobby said about using of the sheets and all that stuff. But this is what the people from the Discord were telling me. There's one guy that posted in Discord. I don't know how it ended up, but he was like using my numbers or whatever. He was cashing for like 30,000 or something. I don't even know what ended up happening with it. But again, it's just data and how you utilize. I mean, I want to take credit for it because how you utilize the data is always the most important thing. But you got to start with a foundation. And then also with the golf, I mean, if you guys watch the preview and my final look, I mean, of my top 4 rated guys, we had Answer who finished number 4. We had English who won. I gave out a 4% owned Jason Day who his back didn't hurt. God knows he might have ended up winning the whole freaking thing. Yep. So I only was able to manage a small profit because I had like just too much of like Grillo, who just missed by one stroke making the cut. But I'm just glad to see that people are making use of it. Then even yesterday with the baseball, I really quickly threw my stuff up there, and someone was like, "Oh, you like Pittsburgh somehow?" I like them too, and Pittsburgh went off yesterday against St. Louis, so that did really well. And this was kind of a funny story. So again, the weekends I'm not quite as available on the Discord, but I looked at it after the fact. I think it was Saturday slate. Someone actually asked me. They said, Sheets, I don't mean to criticize or whatever, but why do you have Birdie ranked as like a higher like raw stat guy than Duvall? It would seem as though Duvall would be like a much better even raw play. I don't get it. And then I wasn't around to answer. Then like 3 minutes later, someone said Birdie home run, right? Yeah. So Birdie hit a home run and Duvall had 0, right? And I wish I could take credit for doing it on purpose, but I really just kind of ran the thing and that's just what it popped up. So I'm glad that people are making use of it. And I work really hard at it, so I'm glad that it's working out for some people. So I'll keep doing it, and I'm doing it for every freaking sport that I see. So if I have time to do LOL slates, I do those, and I do them because like I'm up late, and before I go to sleep, I'll throw it up there anyway, even for like a couple of people that play. So it's up to you how to use them. I'm putting videos out there on what I think is the best way to use them, but they've got to be useful to you in some way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's like I said, an incredibly valuable tool, and I really hope everybody is really making use of this because this is really, really valuable stuff. But yeah, with that said, also we want to do some lineup reviews, and there's a couple people I owe some coaching sessions to that we could either record and show, or we could just do me and you. So you guys remind me about that stuff, and if you're out there, let's set those up because I'm ready to do that with you, and we'll do some coaching sessions as well. But yeah, let's get into today's slate and go from there. You want to pull up your screen and we'll go game by game?
I kind of agree with you.
About which part?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you with respect to the fact that at least at the top of the heap, it is somewhat of a straightforward slate. Not as much for the hitting for me, but I think the pitching there I think is pretty I think straightforward. But let's just take a look at this. So I guess in the first game, I'll just attack this game. I don't really have much interest in either of the pitchers. I used to, Bundy's always kind of in play just as a tournament play, but I'm just not going to get there today. And interestingly, the Yankees, I was expecting to get some ownership for me, just not quite getting there on DK. I'm getting there more on FanDuel, but I'm not quite getting there on DK. I just like some other guys a little bit more, which was a little surprising to me. But that's just kind of where I'm at with respect to this game. The one thing I will say is that I do have a one-off who's really cheap from this game. Who, if you want to play a Renigfo, he's like, I think either 2K or close to it. And that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Basically, exactly. I also don't mind like Fletcher's another value saver at 2.5. Taylor Ward at 2.6. I actually think the Angels side, especially when you factor in ownership and pricing, Rendon, I have interest in all of these guys. I'm not personally playing as many lineups today, so I have them a little further down the list for me. But this is a really I think it's a really reasonable spot to target. And the Yankees bullpen hasn't been what we necessarily expected they would be, even though there's a lot of good arms in there. So I actually like the Angels side of this game. I'm not getting to Bundy today. But it's always going to be one of those. He's gonna beat us sometimes when we don't play him. I always like to play him, but he just hasn't looked quite right to me. So, but I do love the hitting here, and then also Ohtani. If you do want to make an Angels stack, I do think an Angels mini stack is really interesting. I would have them about 4th today, maybe 5th, in terms of my stacks, factoring in ownership and everything. But I do think it's a really, really cheap stack. You can combo stack with whether you do want to play the Yankees, which, by the way, I'm not as high on the Yankees, especially on DraftKings. I think they make more sense on FanDuel as usual. But I think that, you've got a lot of really, really good offenses today. And I just didn't end up getting to the Yankees at these prices on DraftKings.
That's quite a line score from Ohtani yesterday. 3 for 4, a double, a triple, a home. Oh, he missed the cycle because he didn't get a single?
By a single. Yep.
Oh my God, that's brutal. And he got a walk.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Oh man, that's pretty rare, I think.
Yeah, no, I know it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, you ready to get over to the next one, the Mets and Washington?
You know what? Not quite. I don't want to let you off the hook that easy. So what? Tell me about the Yankees a little bit, because I was expecting you to like the Yankees a little bit more. So you're with me, like you're not really into the Yankees today?
It's just it's on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel they make more sense. I don't think that at these prices that I have quite as much interest on DK. You could play. I mean, you do have the cheaper options with the Glaber and the Urshela down at the bottom of the order. But there's other stacks that I'm much more dialed into. And while I think it's actually it's a fine spot to target Bundy, he's actually he does give up a lot of hard contact, a lot of home runs, but he also has decent strikeout stuff. And I just find that there's other pitchers I'd rather pick on a little bit more than him. It's really simple as that. If I was playing 150 lineups, I think I would probably get 10 to 15% of the Yankees, but I don't really want to go crazy with them here. I'm not quite as high on them today as I usually am. So that's just where I'm at. I think Bundy's better than he's pitched so far this year. And again, he still does give up. I have no problem with stacking the Yankees. I just personally like other stacks better. And I like the Angels at their low ownership and their cheap prices actually better than the Yankees in this one.
Okay. I imagine that the next game is gonna be somewhat interesting from the hitting side. You have Mets in Washington with well, I think right now you have Eekhoff and Espino. But I think obviously the focus is going to be on the hitting in this game. Washington on both sides for me is kind of a top play. They're rated for me like something like 2nd on DraftKings, and then, or at least close to it, maybe 3rd on DraftKings, and on FanDuel in the top 4. I have 4 main stacks on FanDuel, so I like them a lot. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about. I mean, forget Soto, like the best hitter in freaking baseball is Kyle Schwarber. I mean, the guy's freaking crazy. I mean, now the last 2 games notwithstanding, I mean, the guy's been freaking bananas. So all those Washington dudes, Robles, even Josh Bell, Soto, Castro. Schwarber, I think they're all in play. I like to imagine that people are going to play them.
Mhm.
And then, interestingly, on the Mets side, I didn't quite, maybe because of the pricing, I didn't quite get to them so much on DraftKings, but I got to them as kind of a main shot on FanDuel. So
Mhm.
that's where I am. And I would also add that on DraftKings that Schwarber and McNeil from this game both look to be good one-offs. And Schwarber, Bell, Soto, Alonso, Conforto are all on FanDuel look to be like good one-offs too.
Yeah, I agree. The Mets would be more on FanDuel for me personally. I do think this is I mean, look, you've got a game. It's 90 degrees in Washington. The wind's blowing out to center about 10, 15 miles. It's supposed to be between 10 and 15 miles an hour by the end of the day. So I do think this is an interesting game to stack. Again, still not my favorite, but I do think Washington, I prefer the Washington side. Schwarber, as you mentioned, just been red hot. I know he had a couple down games, but the power lately has been incredible. But Schwarber, Soto, Turner, Bell are the guys I would be looking at the most. And then I also think that at his price, Starlin Castro is in play at 2.9K. So I do like Washington. It's not my favorite stack, but it is up there for me. I have them and the Angels as sort of both in a similar route, but I do think that they get a little bit more of a boost just because of the weather. And they're a little more expensive, so I'm having a little trouble because the teams I really do want to stack are really expensive, and I think I can get a little bit lower ownership on them, and we'll get into that one in a minute. So again, not as high, not my highest team, but I do think that this is a spot where, if I was playing a bunch of lineups, if I was playing 150, this would probably be a 15 to 20%er of where I'd want to get some action, and I certainly like all those guys as one-offs as well. Turner, Soto, Schwarber. I just personally like a couple stacks a little bit better. Oh, and I should mention Yan Gomes as well.
Yep.
Yeah, this game is the game for me where I do want to. I want to pick on especially. I'm gonna keep going after Richards. I think that we finally got him last time out. Finally, one of the good days I had against Tampa there, where no one was playing. No one was playing Tampa much, but got lit up in an inning, 2/3. Gave up a couple home runs, a stolen base even, and just was out of there in no time. And then you get the ugly relief behind him. I really like KC today. So I also think because of their prices, now it's an interesting way to go because I want to try to get Merrifield and Perez in there if I'm going to play these guys. At least one of the two, but I prefer Perez actually. I think he's the best option. But then you've got Ryan O'Hearn, who's going to be popular at 2.9. Dozier, who will be less popular at 2.9 as well. And then Soler, who's just never owned anywhere near as much as you'd think he would be. I love this spot. And then Santana would be just beneath those guys for me. But KC is the stack that I'm sort of mainly focusing on today to go with some Houston. I don't mind it with Washington or the Angels, like I said, but those are the guys this is the team I want to have the most exposure to. And I do think they're going to be a little bit lower owned than some of these other popular stacks. And because of that, the team that's, you're going to have Boston at fairly high ownership. And I'm just going to say, I understand Boston has guys who can hit lefties. I really like JD Martinez as a one-off. That would be a priority play for me for tournaments. But I don't know that I want to fully stack against Duffy, who is still, even though, he's not, fully back and he pitched out of the bullpen the other day. Just a decent enough pitcher in what might be sort of a bullpen game, great hitting weather in Boston. But I am not as high on the Red Sox stack as I'm guessing the field is going to be today. I'm much more on the KC side.
So a couple of public service announcements, whatever it is. So when you subscribe to True DFS, and it's going to be premium pretty soon, you'll get access to all these sheets that we're kind of referring to. And the other thing that I mentioned is every day, and it's going to look even better than this, but Bobby's going to literally just condense everything to like his best plays. And I always, even if I don't have a chance to talk with Bobby beforehand, I'll at least take a look at this. I mean, you see that he has the KC ranked as actually KC Boston 1-2. Again, this is early look, whatever, but
yeah, I'm going to switch to the Boston one a little further down, but that was my initial thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, if you want to just get right to it, I mean, that's, and not to give away too much, but we're hoping to create some technology where Bobby can actually show his ownerships, real time as he's changing them, which would be like insane.
Yep.
But in any case, like that's the, you go to True DFS, like for the next, couple of hours, maybe you get this for free.
Yep.
And so I did notice before I went on there, we didn't discuss it, but I did notice that Casey was one of your top ones. That's why I'll kind of let you take this one away. I don't have Casey ranked quite as high. I have them kind of like fifth or sixth or so. I think what it is, and I guess is why they're not kind of popping for me as much, is because Casey's main guys for me would be the righties, right? It would be like Soler, Merrifield, Perez, like those types of guys. And so like Richard does have like a really good spin rate or whatever it is, and he is a righty. So I would probably just take a slice from Bobby. I'd look to maybe like O'Hearn maybe as a one-off or something like that from the left side, as opposed to trying to stack just because of all the righties that I would usually want to take from Kansas City. So that's, I guess, why my numbers don't quite have them as high. Although I do have them as the top bunch, but not quite as high. And I don't, for whatever reason, I'm right now not getting to Boston at all. So that's just kind of where I am. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I understand with the spin rate, he's also been much better against righties and all that stuff, but I am not buying into all of the numbers. I still think they're somewhat fraudulent. I think he is a guy who's combustible. He can get exposed at any point. And, for me, I tend to like to do, little 4-man stacks here. And I've got a nice little 4-4 that really, really suits me with Santana and O'Hearn. You get the two lefties in there, and then you play Perez as, in my opinion, the best catching option. And then I've got combinations of Dozier, Merrifield to mix with those guys. So that's the way I would do this stack. And again, I'm factoring in what I'm projecting it to be the early ownership. So this is still early in the day. I don't know for sure that I'm going to stay 100% with this, but that is as of right now my top stack, thinking that they're going to be a little bit lower owned because it's hard to play them with the expensive other stacks that we want to go off, like whether it be the Yankees that other people like, whether it be Houston. And I think KC is it shouldn't be contrarian stack. And I think they're going to be the low owned one of the bunch. So I'm factoring a lot into ownership on this one and the extremely good hitting weather in Boston. And I would rather pick on Richards than Duffy personally. But if you are going to play Boston, I would just say, don't forget, you got Kike and Renfroe down at the bottom of the order, towards the bottom of the order in the stacks. And I would like them in Verdugo if you did want to get a slightly lower owned exposures there. Because you're going to have some ownership on JD. You're going to have some ownership on Bogarts. I think that you want to try and include those other guys or even play Devers in the lefty-lefty matchup if you're going to play Boston.
Okay.
Detroit and Cleveland. I have some interest in the pitching here. Really the Morgan side of it. I'm willing to take a shot. Again, I want to spend up for some bats today. I don't love the top tier. I like it. I like the top two pitchers we have on the slate, price wise and projection wise for raw points. But I think we could take a shot here with Eli Morgan. Pretty good case stuff. I don't expect him to be around forever. He did have 9 strikeouts his last time out against the Cubs. But I like him here against this Detroit team, and I think he's cheap. I think people will get onto a little bit of it, but for me, he's a guy who I plan on currently having in my main lineup, and I am not spending all the way up for pitching in my main lineup as of right now, and he is one of my 2 pitchers who I'm going to spend down for.
So you want to continue on with the rest of it, or?
Oh, sure. I'll go. I like Cleveland quite a bit, but I more just would look at it as one-offs. I only because there's other great options on the slate. I think that they're a completely legitimate, awesome potential stack, but I'm finding myself more with just a one-off of Jose Ramirez at a third base position where I think he's the clear top play. Eddie Rosario, both Rosarios actually, and Cesar Hernandez would be my favorites here. But I just would rather spend on the other guys tonight than I would Cleveland. They're fine. They completely make sense. I can get behind it. It's just not something I'm as interested in as the other stacks today.
So I've currently have Eli Morgan tied with another guy for my top SP2, meaning, when I say SP2, I don't mean my second pitcher necessarily. I just mean like a cheaper one. You know what I mean? So I have him tied with another guy, pretty much his top 2 value. So I'm totally with that. The other thing is that I do have Detroit ranked as the top value stack on the board. So if you're going to play lineups with Peralta, Bauer, Peralta, Gio, those top three guys, and you want to double pay for pitching, I think Detroit is certainly a viable option. And I'll say something else is that if in fact Morgan does get some more ownership and get some more steam, because people want to play Peralta, Bauer, Giolito, with maybe don't want to pick double up for pitching. If for whatever reason they do make Eli Morgan like 15-20%, which I don't think they will, but if they do, then it adds to the allure of playing. Maybe you don't want to go crazy and play five guys from Detroit, but you maybe play a couple of them to make the rest of your lineups work. So
completely agree.
I will just throw the names out there: Mazzara, Grossman, Candelario on DraftKings, and FanDuel, you don't need to do it as much, so I don't get to that much of that over there. But that's where I'm at. I didn't really get to Cleveland too much though. But aside from that, I'm with you on the pitching side of it, and that's about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I do think I did list Mazzara, Badu, and Grossman. I think are all interesting as one-offs or even part of a mini stack. You could even include Haas if you want to, or Cabrera. But personally, I on this slate with all this hitting, I would rather just try to, depending on where Mazzara is in the lineup as a one-off, depending on how it checks out with Badu and Grossman, those are my favorites. So I can get behind it. It's just I'm mostly looking at it as one-offs because I like the other spots a little bit better. And we want to jump over to Chicago, Milwaukee. You want to start it off?
Yeah. The other one that I hit all right yesterday. We actually got lucky. I just happened to have had the right guys to get there. Was Milwaukee. He had, who's come back and starting to hit the ball again is Hura. Came back from the minors. He had a home run yesterday, and Norris hit a home run yesterday. With that said, Peralta for me is he's the same as Bauer on my board. He is. They're both really, really strong. They're both going to be very, very popular, and I honestly can't separate them. I think that attempting to love one that much more than the other, I just think I don't say you're asking for it. I mean, it's fine. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously it'd be nice to get them both. But Peralta certainly has insane amount of, has double-digit strikeout upside. I will say that Bauer probably, I have more faith in, getting 110 pitches than Peralta. But I don't even want to debate it. You know what I mean? For me, it's Peralta, Bauer, and I can't separate them. So I do like them a lot. I didn't quite get to Peralta. I mean to Hendricks, and I didn't get to either hitting side either. What are your thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I have zero interest in the hitting whatsoever. I do like Peralta. If I play him, it'll be with Bauer because I'm giving Bauer the slight edge. I also think Peralta is going to be more popular than Bauer is. So that's just my initial thoughts. I don't think it's going to be drastic, but I think he'll be a little more popular. So I'm giving the edge to Bauer, who I just think is still a little bit of a better pitcher. I do worried about the anti-gunk thing or whatever we want to call it. You also have Peralta with he's got an 8.5K prop, which is really high, and Bauer's got a 7.5. So I see why people are going to like him, but I'm just giving a little bit of the edge to Bauer tonight. Those Cubs, I mean, by the way, I have to just mention Kershaw yesterday with 13 strikeouts on off-speed pitches, almost broke the record yesterday against these Cubs. And Peralta is a little bit of a different type of pitcher. Obviously, he's going to use a little bit more power. And I think the Cubs are a team that tends to do a little bit better with power pitchers than they do with guys who throw a lot of off-speed stuff. So I'm just giving a little bit of the edge to Bauer over Peralta, but absolutely love them both. If you can get them both in, depending on the way some of the lineups stack out, maybe we go that way. But personally, I want to pay up for some bats tonight, so I'm not using both of them in my main lineup. If I was, it would be Bauer with a slight edge, but I wouldn't mind playing them together if we did maybe you get Kiki leading off at 3.6 and maybe Renfroe. That's the way I would sort of look at Boston. I'd have more interest if their lineup got shaken up a little bit, because in order to play these guys, you really do you're going to have to spend down in some spots. And I just personally am siding more with the bats today, because I feel like the Morgan, I feel like I can get my potential 20 points out of Morgan, or 18 to 20. And I think that's good enough for me tonight. I think Peralta, while he might he's got that upside of putting up 40. I think most of the time he ends up between 20 and 30, I would say here. I think the Cubs offense is a little better than most people give it credit for. So that's where I'm at here. So it's and I can't quite get to Hendricks on this slate at 9.1. If he was like maybe 1,000 or 1,500 cheaper, I'd probably be considering him as one of those guys, but I just am not getting to it.
regarding the Kershaw thing, so of all of the incredible in-depth analysis that's been done in baseball numbers over the last 30 years, I wonder how much work has been spent on this other thing, which I'm going to bring up, which I thought about like a long time ago. The idea of how teams do when they on the one day they face a guy that throws heat, and then the next day face a guy that throws crap, and or vice versa. And you bring it up kind of made me think about that type of analysis of my initial way I think about sports and life in general, whatever, is that it's kind of tough to face like contrasting styles back and forth because you get used to the rhythm of one guy. Give me one like really just, again, you talk about old school sheet story. Now this goes way back, and here are names that you may or not ever remember. There's a guy who pitched for Cleveland named Greg Swindell. He pitched for a couple of other teams after that. But he came up with Cleveland. And when I was living in Cape Cod one summer, I was like betting on baseball or whatever it was. And they were playing the Red Sox. And this was actually, it was 85, 86, the year that the Red Sox made it to the World Series. Anyway, they pounded him. They pounded Greg Swindell, who brought basically just through, at that point, just heat. You know what I mean? He was like a rookie at the time. They put up 24 runs. I think they won 24-5. Oof. And the next day, Boston was playing Phil Niekro was pitching for Cleveland, who threw nothing but knuckleballs. And Niekro, I think, shut them out like 4-0 or 4-1 or something like that. So it got me thinking about what you said about whether, if it's an advantage to go up against straight fast pitches as after going against junk pitches. I don't know. I figured I'd throw that out.
It's important. I do think it's important to always think about that stuff, and I try to track it on a lot of these guys, and Kershaw also does get he's a little bit of an exception because most people may not realize this year he's his highest swinging strike rate ever. His slider has basically been virtually unhittable this year. And I think the first 9 strikeouts he had yesterday were on sliders. I think the Cubs the Cubs bats are a little better than that. I think they'll actually be happy to see Peralta versus Kershaw, even though again I think Peralta's awesome, but at chalk, when I want to pay for bats, I'm just avoiding it. But yeah, always good to think about that kind of thing and what teams do what. Like I always use my Dodgers as an example. They're a team. If you put a power righty, I don't care how good the guy is, I'm always going to have interest in Dodger bats because they tend to just crush power righties. Whereas a guy like Blake Snell, who not that he can't throw hard, but he, guys who nibble and guys who can throw off speed pitches who have come from the left side against the Dodgers tend to do a little bit better than the righties. And I'm just using them as an example, but it's something we'll track going forward and certainly talk about. You ready to go to the next one? Which game? The game with probably the most weather concern on the slate.
Yeah, tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it looks like there's going to be some scattered showers coming in and out throughout the game. I think that there is a chance that we might see this postponed. I think we'll know about it in advance, which would be good to know. But I think it's early in the day, so instead of speculating on it, I'm going to treat it like it's going to play right now. And with the rain there, and I'm just double checking the temperature. Don't have it right in front of me. Give me 1 second here, and I'll grab it because I'm finding reasons why not to place, or why to and why not to play certain pitchers today. And I think Giolito would be completely in the mix, but the guy who I'm actually much more interested in is Maeda. Again, I want to pay up for bats. I think Maeda is he's not a $7,500 pitcher. He's coming back, since coming back from the injury because he's only had his 2 starts, but did ramp up and pitch a little bit deeper into the last one against Texas. Nothing special his last 2 times out, 17 and 16 fantasy points. Again, I feel like if you get the bats right and you want to pay up today, you can play these cheap guys. So I've actually got Maeda and Morgan in my main lineup as of right now. I'm not saying I'm going to stick with that, but I do think Maeda is a very legitimate option. And when he's on, can get through 6 innings with 8 Ks and no runs. I mean, he's got that in him. And another guy who can keep hitters off balance. I'd like to know I don't have it as of right now, but I'd like to know the umpire data before I make a full commitment on that one. That's sort of what I'm going to let decide that in the weather. But I do have Maeda. I do have a ton of interest in Maeda. And I just have Giolito behind the other 2. But again, Giolito's going to be lower owned than the other 2, Bauer. And I just don't like him quite as much.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the same way with respect to Giolito. I don't quite have him as strong as the other 2. Not that he's in my top 5, but I just feel as though the other guys are just much better. And I have my Ada as tied with Morgan as my top SP2. I'm not gonna push my luck though if there's weather concerns though. If it's like, you know, if the Morgan's at 710, so if that White Sox game is not a go at that point, I'm playing Morgan. That's the way it's gonna be. I don't like my Ada that much. You know what I mean? So I'm not quite getting to either the hittings over there. It's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, zero interest in the hitting for me, but and again, I might revisit the Maeda thing if we get some value that we don't have, because I like the value I like some of the value out there, but I don't love it the same way we've had some other guys at 2K that are just in awesome spots batting at the top of the order today. So that's why I'm sort of siding with the paying down a little bit of pitching. I also think Bauer has some question marks, and like I mentioned, I do think the Cubs are pretty good against power righties. So I am leaning a little bit towards paying down a pitcher. But Maeda, you know, he threw 84 pitches last time out. I expect him to be closer to 90 this time out, maybe a little bit higher. It's not the highest upside play in the world, but I do think he's good enough to get this. And his White Sox lineup is, well, they've got some power. They've also got some strikeouts in that lineup. So I do think, you know, as of right now, I said I have Maeda and Morgan. That very well may change, but that's sort of my initial build, was to try and pay up for the bats and use those guys. Hopefully get my 45 combined points or 40 to 45 combined points from them and win a slate with the bats. That's the way I'm approaching it.
So you're going to play both Maeda and Morgan if it's a go.
I'm as of right now, that's my current plan, but I'd like to get the umpire data before I do. Maeda is a guy who I really want to have at least a non-extreme hitters umpire. I'd like to have him at least and if you get an extreme pitchers umpire, then I'll leave it exactly as is probably. We just don't have that data yet with it being a new series, and probably won't for another few hours. You want to talk about Houston?
Is this next? Yeah. So is this next game one of the games that you'd pay up for the bats if you were going to play those to pay down for pitching? Because I mean, for me, that's what I would think. I would think that Houston would be that one of those teams where if you could afford them, great. But it's hard to afford sometimes. But I do have them ranked as my top, you know, raw point stack, as you know, and that would be just Alvarez, Altuve, Tucker, Brantley, Correa. I actually also do have them as one of the top values also, not, you know, maybe top 5. So I guess Houston would be kind of like a top, probably the highest owned stack, I presume. But how many people really get a double pay down for pitching like you're suggesting? So is that where you're looking? Is Houston as like a top like pay up stat?
Yeah, but I think that I think that it's hard to get even with the paying down and pitching. It's hard if you want to play the Royals and them together. You're gonna have to take some of the Royals value. But I love Brantley in this spot. I love the whole Houston lineup against Eshelman. I just don't believe in it. I think he's one of the. I always feel bad saying one of the worst pitchers in baseball, but I do think he is on the bottom tier. And I think that bullpen is garbage. So I like them. The only issue I ever have with it's sort of like Colorado. Like I don't usually like stacking teams too much outside of Colorado against Colorado pitchers because they're used to pitching in Colorado, and that's sort of baked into what everybody expects in terms of run totals and all that. Houston is nowhere near the hitting park that Baltimore is. So if this game was in Baltimore, I would absolutely have Houston well ahead as number 1. As of right now, I have them sort of bunched in with the other guys, but they're red hot right now. I believe hot streaks. I believe in hot streaks. I believe they're real. I believe of course they come to an end at some point, but I really like this stack. And Correa, when he gets going, you know, is a totally like different player. So like Correa versus Bogarts is an interesting one. I'm siding with Correa. He's just looked really good at the plate, making tons of hard contact. You know, homered 3 out of his last 8 games, along with a couple doubles in there, and just in the middle of this Houston lineup, which I really like. So I like Correa. People, I don't know if they're going to pay all the way up for Jordan Alvarez. I'm sure that they will in full stacks, but I don't know if they'll be doing it in like 2-man or 3-man. So I'll use him more there. And then Brantley, Tucker, Altuve. I have Merrifield a little bit ahead of Altuve, but they're close for me. So I really like this whole Houston stack. Most of my lineups right now would be based around playing Houston and KC. Those are my favorites. And you're going to get some ownership on Houston, obviously, but they're red hot and they're facing as good a matchup as you basically can get. And you never know. Maybe they're cheating again, which is they're at home. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, they got two more games here. I got St. Louis as one of my top hitting ideas. O'Neill, Nootbaar, Carlson, Goldschmidt, DeYoung, just basically everybody. I have them, and I'm not getting. I mean, like you would think that if you pull up what's his name, so LeBlanc's game logs, you'd probably want to play Arizona, but they're not showing up as that great of a play for me. And what I was going to say is I'm not playing him, but man, I'm just looking at his game. Like I guess they moved him to the bullpen after they got him from Seattle or whatever, and he hasn't really been doing anything. I mean, this guy does have tricks. I mean, like he's not like the worst pitcher in the world. I know I say that. I'm looking at his game logs. Look, he hasn't gotten anybody out the whole season. So maybe I just don't notice because he's always coming out of the bullpen. I'm not really following like the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings of like Cardinals games that aren't in or competitive. You know what I mean? So maybe I just don't know. But I don't think I'm going to get to Arizona. But I will get to some St. Louis.
Yeah, I'm not. I totally understand the St. Louis thing. It's just not the route that I'm going. Again, I'm going to side with the American League teams and again, good hitting conditions all over the place today. But I just personally am a bigger fan of the other ones a little bit more. You've got a little wind blowing out. It's 86 degrees, nice hitting weather, and don't get me wrong, but I'll take the Boston hitting weather a little bit better, and I like the actual lineups a little bit better. This is a bullpen game to me. I will stack bullpen games at times. But I don't, and Arizona's bullpen is awful, but when you have everybody pitching 2 or 3 innings, it's not as interesting to me on a slate where we have some really, really good offenses. So I'm a little bit off this one from a hitting standpoint, because I've got to make some decisions somewhere. So I'm not quite as high on it. I don't mind anybody. I don't mind if you're going to do it. It's just not the way I'm building. I'm not playing enough lineups to get to St. Louis today. I'm really focusing more in on my Houston, KC, maybe a bat or 2 from Boston, and then Cleveland as my favorites, and I'm just not getting to St. Louis. But I don't think you can play either pitcher. I think it's really going to be basically a bullpen game. So that's where I'm at on that one.
So if anybody wants to play DeScalfani off of these performances, I certainly won't blame you, but that's just not going to be me. My parents didn't raise me to play righties against the Dodgers, especially with Cody Bellinger back and all this stuff. As a matter of fact, I don't know how hard I need to sell you on this, but 3 hours after the final game is over, I'm going to have some Dodgers just for fun. And maybe I'll try one of these like Morgan Maeda things and just overpay for these Dodgers. I just hope these other games just bust. You know what I mean? I'm just sitting there with all kinds of Dodger stuff ready to go. Now again, Scalfani's been great, whatever it is, but we'll just see about that. And with the others, that's by the way, that's really heavy duty analysis by me. That's what all I can tell you. But I do like Bauer, as I mentioned before. I have him rated just as high as Peralta. He's going to be my top. He's going to be one of the top 2 guys on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I have Peralta pretty much the same. I mean, I have Peralta maybe a little bit better, just because of his price. But that's not to get me off of Bauer over there. So for me, it's the only thing that's different over there. Maybe I get to a little more. I don't know, Giolito over there. I'm not sure why that would be, but because of the ownership, maybe. I don't know. So it's the same 3. I don't need to pay down for pitching.
Yeah, I would be using Bauer on FanDuel, and I still like him on DK. He's on my secondary lineups. I just don't have him currently in my main one, which again could change by the end of the day. And I think Bellinger is the best one-off on the slate. I actually like DeScalfani in general. I've always sort of been defending him, but I mean Bellinger at 3.9 especially when he gets back in the zone, this guy is an old. I mean, he has hot streaks that can last forever. The only thing that ever irritates you about him is that he walks a lot. So be it. Whatever. Homered back-to-back games after coming back off the injured list. I am a huge fan of Bellinger here. Also happy to see that he stole a base again the other day. Just makes me feel good playing him. So I love Bellinger at 3.9, and I don't mind if you want to do a weird 4, 5, 6, 8 stack with Lux, Smith, and McKinstry, assuming the lineup's the same. McKinstry, I actually believe in. And by the way, if we don't get a lineup out in time, and somehow, there's always a chance with the Dodgers on a Monday, you might see a McKinstry batting second or a Lux batting second. And then I could have some serious interest in this. That it's not always fun to stack the bottom. Again, we have a lot of good offenses, but I don't mind a little Dodger 3-man depending on where they go. And Bellinger, Lux, and McKinstry are actually my favorite 3, all at reasonable prices along with Will Smith. I don't think I'm going to get up. I'd rather spend money elsewhere other than on Betts, Muncy, and Turner. So I'm probably not full stacking here, but I definitely like the Bellinger angle. And I wouldn't mind him with Lux and McKinstry as well. And I'm not getting into DeScalfani either, but I always think it's one of those, again, where if I'm playing 150, there's no way I'd play this slate and not have like 10% DeScalfani. That's where I would have him at. I think there's enough upside because he's just a good pitcher.
So let me ask you a question. And I hear people say that with respect to, well, if I was playing 150, I would definitely get DeScalfani. Do you think it's more likely that DeScalfani, puts up a ceiling performance and ends up in the winning lineup, or would you rather spend those 150 lineups on different hitting options? You know what I mean? Like obviously it depends on the slate. So like on today's slate, for example, like do you feel as though if you were playing 150 that you'd be more concerned about getting the pitching ceiling or getting additional hitting ceilings?
I would want the hitting ceiling, but the funny part is DeScalfani has the highest upside probably of the pitchers under 8K or under. Yes, but I still think that and he's been great. I mean, we could just look at his game log and it'd be easy to tell that. I just the Dodgers offense is starting to come a little bit back together after that no-hitter the other night. By the way, DraftKings sent me a thing for a suite, which I really appreciate, but somehow the dates got mixed up. So I was gone. I was here in New York, and it would have been for Friday night. So I was very fortunate because I would have watched them get no hit. So it wouldn't have been the most fun game to go to because that's not going to happen but every few years for this Dodger lineup. I just personally would I'm just siding with Maeda over DeScalfani. I do like paying down for pitching because I do think on this slate it's the bats that are going to win it for you. And just to talk about that for one quick second, like it's really interesting the way things went. Like the other night, for example, in the 888, not only Tatis hit 3 home runs the other night and was 15% owned in the 888. He was not on any of the top 10 lineups, which is really interesting. You know what I mean? This guy hits 3 home runs, puts up 49 DraftKings points, and is 15% owned, and somehow isn't on there. The same way that when Rahm won the tournament at the U.S. Open, he wasn't on any of the millionaire winning lineups except for the 4,400 one. He wasn't on He wasn't on the big ones. The $100 buy-in and the $10 and all that stuff. And that's just kind of interesting because he was popular and he won the tournament, and he wasn't even on the winning line. He wasn't even on there. And same thing with Tatis the other night. So just remember, there's plenty of ways to skin a cat. You know what I mean? But the way I'm looking at this slate is I do want to try and get the bats in. If we get some other value, if somehow Mazara is batting cleanup in that 2.2K, then maybe we can talk a little bit about paying all the way up for pitching. If we get Mazara and another guy we don't even know about yet at 2K, and then you play Bellinger at 3.9, you could pay all the way up for pitching and stack the infield of the Astros, for example, pretty easily, and pay up for both pitching spots. But the way I'm looking at it as of right now, with the projected lineups, I would rather side with the hitting today because I think a couple of these teams go way off. I think it's all slate dependent though on that stuff, and I think it's always an interesting question. And to me, that's just the way I see this slate shaking out. I want to get by with my 45 for my pitchers. Yes, I could get burned because Bauer could put up 40 and 35 from Peralta or 35 from each or something like that. Even still, I think I'm going to have chances because I think a couple of these offenses are just going to go completely nuclear.
I'd like to point out that is part of the way I usually look at baseball is that the Dodgers did get no hit June 24th and then won 3 in a row. Yep. So you could have bet on them the next day and been very, very confident about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, you want to just do a quick summary of what you like and what I like and whatever?
Yeah, quick summary would be, again, I really do like KC and the Astros as my 1 and 2 as of right now. And I do think the KC ownership is going to be lower just because especially the players I'm playing, because I just don't think you can play all these guys. It's just not possible to get them in. Sort of like we mentioned the other day about when I was playing the Tampa hitters on that one slate. Meadows was like 5% owned on a 6-game slate or a 5-game slate, maybe it was, in a great matchup because you just can't play that many outfielders. So I really like the KC side of things. I'm not saying they'll be unowned, but I think they're going to be low owned. So KC, and I'm moving the Red Sox down a little bit in my lineup. KC, the Astros, Indians, and then I'm not as interested, but I have interested in pieces of the Dodgers, Yankees, Cardinals, and Angels, but mostly it's going to be one or two hitters from there. And favorite one-offs would be Cody Bellinger, and then they'd all be guys from those other JD Martinez. He would be the one guy. Sorry about that. For some reason, my computer started making noises. I want to see if Adubro Cabrera is in the lineup today because he's 2.5K. He's another value. Fletcher's 2.5K for the Angels. Not the most exciting one-off because he doesn't have the power, so I don't think I would do that, but I don't mind him as maybe a part of a three-man. I actually think there's value in Rendon at 4,300 in Yankee Stadium. Baду, I mentioned, Nootbaar. Those are just the cheap options that I'm just sort of considering, but mostly it'll be the Royals guys, Dozier, O'Hearn. Those are really my favorite ones, and I'm really just all over the Royals today, and I hope it works out. It may be not the most fun team to stack, but you do have some speed power upside that I really like in Boston, where it's great hitting weather against Garrett Richards, who I think is fraudulent, and that's the way I'm going today.
I reemphasize because I didn't talk about them enough. The Angels as a good stack, and you just kind of touched on them a little bit more. So for me, it's Detroit is the top rated, but you don't need him if that makes any sense. You know, I think that you could play a couple of guys from there as one-offs, but you know, even I don't think you're going to need to play a 4 or 5 man stack in Detroit, even if you want to pay up for those double pitchers. Angels I like. Then as I mentioned, in order for now, Angels, Washington, Houston, St. Louis, and then KC, as you mentioned. One-offs that I didn't mention already. I think I mentioned pretty much everybody. I'll reemphasize Schwarber, McNeil for the Mets, O'Hearn for KC, and FanDuel. I just want to make sure I just didn't miss anything. No, I think we pretty much covered everything. FanDuel, Houston, Mets, Washington, New York as my teams. Peralta and Bauer as my pitchers.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only difference I'd make between sites is that I definitely have more interest in the Yankees on FanDuel than I do on DK. Yep. All right.
All right.
Guys,
as Bobby can attest, the weather is really it's good hitting weather in New York right now. Yep. And it was good hanging out with him. And we'll be back to normal as far as our content goes. Well, I shouldn't say back to normal. We're going to be kind of like different, right? Because
we're going to have more.
Launching the site with more and some more and less and better and worse and all of it. So you'll be there for the ride with us.
Yeah, and I will be doing whether you're able to or not. I think hopefully you will be able to do it together. But I will be doing showdowns for the rest of the NBA season as well. Oh,
by the way, when I got to call back, no, I got 5 minutes. I'll tell you that my ROI in these NBA showdowns has been insane. Yeah. Well, you know what? You know what I've been doing? I mean, I literally have been and nothing fancy. I've been locking in like just the locks and just shuffling like all the secondary pieces. And every slate, I'm in first and in the 100th and first and 200th and first. I'm always just kind of in there and just got a little unlucky, without, and look, the fact is you're not going to take down the freaking NBA showdown by yourself. It's just not going to happen. Unless you get one of those blowouts like the other day. But even still. But I'm on that NBA showdown stuff with you. So we'll get there. He'll be on a plane, but I'll be doing I'll be there live tonight to go through all that stuff. And that's it.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, man. Great. Good job. And guys, good luck to everybody. Let's crush it this week. We're coming into July. I want us all to take something down and let us know when you do in Discord. We're going to be much more active in there as well. So we will see you at the top of the leaderboards tonight.